and welcome to the Think MHK podcast presented by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. On this episode, you will hear from two of the 15 Under 40 recipients. The 15 Under 40 program selects 15 nominees each year to honor and recognize the accomplishments of outstanding young professionals who make a positive impact in the community and excel in their industry. We look forward to hearing their stories. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Jason Smith, President and CEO of the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Our guest today on the Think MHK podcast is another one of our 15 Under 40 recipients. So the group of individuals, our young professionals in the community who are recognized for outstanding achievement. We've been interviewing them on the show this season, and today's guest is Lindsay Lowe with Platinum & Company. Hey, Lindsay.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being with us today. So we always ask our guests to start off telling us a little bit about themselves and how they ended up in Manhattan and about their career and what they do. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Definitely. So actually, I grew up just right down the road in Riley, Kansas. And so I didn't have to travel too far to wind up in Manhattan. In fact, I went to middle school and high school here in Manhattan and just really loved the area. And so decided that I wanted to have a career inside of the beauty industry and started working at Crimper's Hair Studio and ended up buying it and then evolving it into Platinum & Company over the years. And, so I do that locally. And then I also have it's called the PhD program, which serves salon owners across North America. And we have a salon business school. And so kind of have evolved from doing hair behind the chair to running our business and helping other salon owners across North America run their business as well. Yeah.
So there's some interesting things there I'm going to follow up on. So when did you decide to buy the business?
Yeah. So it was in 2009, and I had a partner for a little time. She moved about 4 years ago, and I bought out her share inside of the company. But then we became Platinum & Company in 2011.
Yeah. So you were a fairly young entrepreneur at that point then,
yes,
right?
I was.
So were you nervous at all about making that step? And was it easier with a partner? And kind of walk us through what that decision process was like.
Yeah. So both of my parents were entrepreneurs, and actually both of their parents were entrepreneurs. And so I knew that was always something that was, on my radar, and, mentioned it to Cheryl, who is the owner of Crimper's, one day. And she said, hey, if I'm ever interested in selling, I'll let you know. And so that time arrived, and just decided, hey, let's go for it. Yeah. And, I think that it was like blind ambition, or I don't even know what it was, really. Stupidity maybe was part of it too, not really knowing what I was getting myself into, but also just knowing that I loved the industry. I loved, the people. And I knew that, there was a possibility to grow it and continue to create a legacy that was already started, and just, do my best to amplify it beyond that.
And did you change the name immediately? Is there some relevance to the name, or is it just a name you picked?
Yeah, great question. So we actually used to be down, if somebody is familiar with the Manhattan area, we were in the old Nautilus building in Aggieville. And then Gwen Riffle bought that building and built a new building across the street. And so when we moved over across the street, that was when the name change sparked, and it was truly like, platinum is a hair color that's really popular. Sure. And also it's just like a strong, precious metal, and just thinking about, creating some strength inside of our industry and helping people create a lasting career that they really loved was kind of where that name was born. And then the & Company was just all of the people that would come along with it. And we're not just going to only do platinum blonde hair.
Yeah. So what services do you offer within your business?
Yeah. So we predominantly focus on hair and skin services. So anything from cutting, coloring, extensions, like both hair extensions, lash extensions, facials, you name it. We've got everything when it comes to hair and skincare.
Yeah. And how many people do you have?
Yeah. So right now we have about 23 people on
Oh,
our
wow.
team.
Yeah, that's a large operation.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a great group of people and, lots of great strengths on our team. And so it's incredible to work on a team-based team as well inside of the salon industry where people are looking out for each other. It's
and
great.
you have openings if people want to get in?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep,
all right.
We do.
So talk about the PhD program.
Yeah.
Because that seems like a pretty unique program. And how'd you start it and what exactly do you do for businesses across the country?
Yeah, I love that. So we, really it started years ago when, I realized, hey, we need some systems and processes inside of our business. And, there's a few education opportunities out there, but, you have to kind of piece together a lot of things to learn how to run a successful salon business. And so I have a partner inside of that. Her name is Jen Booth. She lives in North Carolina. And so we just realized, hey, there's a big missed opportunity. If somebody was to create like a salon business school, that could really help. There's a lot of people who leave our industry before they even make it very long. And it's hard to figure out how to make a lasting career out of it. And, for us, it would be a dream come true if people were super proud when their kids wanted to go to cosmetology school, instead of saying, oh, you're not going to do well in that. We want people to say, wow, that's an incredible career to be a part of. And so, that's where Salon Business School was born, and the PhD program, just kind of takes it even further to where you can learn some people, like some personal development and just that people aspect of it to just continue to thrive inside of the industry.
So you're offering business assistants to, do you know how many you've helped over the years?
Over the years, gosh, yeah, because we've even done some consulting, I would say hundreds of salon owners over the years. So
in almost all states?
Yeah,
every state?
in the U.S. and Canada.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's fun. And it's fun also to see, Canadian businesses are run so differently than American. And so it's great to have that in your wheelhouse too.
Yeah, I just, over the last 10 years or so, I became more aware. My daughter's best friend owns a salon in her hometown and is very successful. And so it is something that I think that people should, and as with all trades and technical programs and those kind of things, I think we have to do better lifting the folks who decide to go in those careers up, because you can be an electrician and own your own electrician company and make a whole lot of money and be very successful. And there's a variety of other things like that as well. So thank you for helping people. Another thing that we've discovered in a similar situation, but we're working on this childcare accelerator, and it's a similar issue where you have people opening childcare centers and don't have any business experience and no one to talk to. And so congratulations for providing that service. That's a great service to, I'm sure, salon owners across the country.
Yes, thank you. And I'm excited about that, the new development with the childcare stuff here. I think that's
we may
so
need to
cool.
pull you into that and have you help how you've worked that in your business.
Yeah.
So you were named one of the 15 under 40, and congratulations again on that. You obviously were notified a couple times, once when you were nominated, and we ask people to fill out an application so we get a better feel of what you've done in the community, and then you were notified when you won. So give me your reaction to both those notifications and how you felt when you received those.
Yeah. So, I was super honored. Callie Marks nominated me, and, I've known her for years. When she first moved back to Manhattan after being in Kansas City, I actually got the opportunity to do her hair and get to know her and her dad. And so I was just super honored that she thought of me. And then I just thought it was a really neat process, to even be able to unpack some of the things that you do inside of the community or the world at large. I think is that's just a cool practice, and not something that we often stop and do. And so when you're able to write it down, it feels like, wow, that really does feel like I am helping in the world and hopefully making a good experience for people on that other side, and so it was just really cool. And I just felt super honored that I got to even just apply, so
And then when you found out you won.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I was, super honored and mostly just, seeing the other young professionals that were also chosen in that, like what a beautiful pool of people. And I think, just seeing that is so encouraging for others because you're like, okay, I'm going to call forth a little bit more greatness. I might have some more stuff inside of me to give to the world. And so I love that you guys do this. I think it's awesome. I think all of the people, including myself, would probably say they still would have done everything without the recognition.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But getting it feels just great. And I think it's so inspiring for so many people to think, hey, this is great. When we put more good out in the world, it just creates a better community for us to all live in.
Yeah. We've won several awards at the Chamber this year, and I've told, or in 23, and I told our leadership, we don't do this for the awards, but it's nice when people recognize that you're making an impact.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
And you had several people with you at the
Yes,
ceremony, right?
I did.
So you got to share that with some of your family.
Yes, I did. And that was such a neat celebration, and it was fun to see some other people's families and friends and just, local people inside of the community. You guys really hosted an epic event. And, I'm just excited at just seeing how many awesome people were there, and knowing, hey, this is just year 2 for you guys. It just makes me really excited for the whole, this whole Flint Hills region to watch that continue to grow.
And you'll get to come back every year as an alumni, right?
I love it.
So, so you talked about you grew up in Raleigh and went to school in Manhattan, and I think you've not left. You've never left,
no,
right?
I haven't.
Why have you chosen to be? Obviously, you bought a business, and at that point, it anchors you. But you could have sold it and moved. Why have you decided to stay here?
Yeah, I just love Manhattan. I truly do. I feel like it's a hidden gem. I think that you hear that, especially in the service industry. I've had several clients that would come back over the years that were like, I can't wait to come back. I wanted to get my hair done. I wanted to go visit my favorite restaurants. I wanted to get some new K-State gear, whatever it was that they were excited to come back to. But I just think, Manhattan is such a special place because it's big enough that you have a lot of the amenities that you're looking for, but it's small enough that you're going to run into somebody at the grocery store or run into somebody at dinner. And, I think there's the Midwest nice saying, but it's like in Manhattan, it's even nicer. I think that people are just so friendly, and it's something that, I do some traveling for work too, and I'd never take it for granted how friendly people are in Manhattan. And so it just makes it an easy place to call home, and I love it.
And recently, not relatively recently, I think Callie recruited you to come volunteer at the Chamber. And so you're on our membership committee. Yeah. Talk about that experience of getting involved with the Chamber. And have you learned, has anything surprised you? Has anything, is it kind of like you expected? What's that experience been?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I've loved it. I was honored that she asked me to do that as well. And, I think it just really helps deepen your roots inside of a community and understand people more. And, I think if I were to say has anything surprised me? Probably not, but I loved hearing more about the advocacy work that the Chamber does. And so I thought, that was neat to hear about that. And, I'm sure at some point in time I would have, but it was just one day it was talked about, and so I love that there's a group of people that truly do want to see Manhattan progress, and I think that the Chamber is like the hub to make that all possible. And so, I would say if anyone's listening that's ever been tapped on the shoulder or thinking about doing that in the future, it's an amazing opportunity to get plugged in deeper to see like all the incredible things that are happening in the community.
And of course, as a business owner, you have different perspective maybe on things. Is Manhattan a good place to do business? Is it a good place to own a business?
It totally is. I love it. I feel like, the clients here are awesome. And, I think with K-State and the military, part of part of any business is you are going to have a small amount of attrition. And so we're always kind of getting a new population in. And so I think that it really helps businesses thrive because there's a solid group of local citizens that are they're lifers. I feel like Manhattan people are just lifers if you stick around for long enough. But then also just knowing, hey, there's always some fresh ideas and fresh people kind of coming through the area. I think it just makes you grow that appreciation deeper and enjoy your business more.
Well, and you hit on a really key point for the chamber is why we are focused so much on growth is because businesses like yours and others constantly need new customers to grow or in some cases need new employees to be able to fill their positions. And so growth is so important to our business community, and our business community is important in generating the tax revenues that our government bodies need to maintain our quality of life. So we love entrepreneurs and they're very important to the ecosystem here and appreciate you continuing to grow and prosper in the community. What inspires you and motivates you to get involved in things?
Any chance to use my knowledge for the highest good of everyone, I want to take that opportunity. And so sometimes I might say yes too often, but it's never not served me well. And, I just think if we all, looked for ways that we could help each other, like, not to sound too much like a dreamer, but just imagining what that world could look like, I think that help is one of those things that makes the world go round. And so I want to do my part because so many people have helped me get to where I am today. So I feel like I want to stay in exchange with everything that I've gotten and give as much as I can in return.
So along those lines, as somebody who bought a business and became an entrepreneur at a relatively young age, for the next young person who's going to school at USD 383 High School that maybe isn't particularly interested in college and wants to get out and be an entrepreneur, what advice do you give somebody like that? I mean, you've gone through that and you're now advising other entrepreneurs. I mean, what's a good piece of advice for somebody that says, you know what, I want to own my own business, and I want to, at the leaders retreat, we heard the gentleman talk about, I want to create my own systems. I don't want to be part of a system. Yeah. You did that, right? Yeah. So what piece of advice would you give to a young person?
Yeah, I would say, who you surround yourself with is going to be one of the most important things. And so finding and building a team of people, and, a lot of people think when you say team, it's just the people who, that you're going to work with every day, but your team is like the chamber. You guys have so many great resources. You're going to want a great attorney. You're going to want a great, business coach. You're going to want a great, accountant, whatever that is. Just start looking for people who would be a great team for you at some point. And, the chamber is going to have some great connections. If there's somebody inside of the industry, because like for me, I believe that there's enough to go around. Like we can't cut every single person's hair in Manhattan, although we would like to. It's not physically possible. And so, just knowing like, hey, what would seemingly be your competitors are not really your competitors. Like you want to root them on too. And so look for people who are doing, what you would like to be doing, and just ask them like, hey, how do I get started? What would you recommend? Build that team.
And you're a good example. It's not unattainable. It's owning your own business is something you can do relatively young.
Yes, totally. And, I think, and also just knowing like, hey, invest all you can and getting the most knowledge possible, because that truly is what's going to unlock a little bit more freedom, and it's okay if you make mistakes. We're supposed to make mistakes. It's like, how do you get up from that? How do you learn from that? How do you keep moving forward? Because I think if you, get stuck at a red light for too long, it's easy to just quit, but if you can find a way to roll through life and, even if it's with caution, and then eventually you'll find yourself going.
Well, and another thing you pointed out that I think sometimes young people maybe miss is you actually got the opportunity to buy the business because you were working at that place. And so sometimes you go get a job and these opportunities present themselves. So try to be aware of what's going on around you as well.
Totally. And, I was always looking for opportunities to help Cheryl, the previous owner. Like, if I knew she was going to be in there on Sunday painting, well, by golly, I was in there on Sunday painting, even if I was, at an age where I was going out to the bars the night before, and just making it a priority to help other people who are helping you. I always feel like, that giver's gain theory, like what you give, you always get back. And so I think that that's what helps open up those doors to those opportunities, like, hey, I'm interested and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. And you'll eventually
and
get
she
there.
probably knew you were motivated and would be a good owner. So just in general, if you have advice for young professionals right now, what would be advice you would give just a young professional in general about their careers and their lives and based on your experiences?
Yeah, I would say, just get plugged in wherever you can and, try to help as many people as you can help. And, if you need help, ask for help, because I think, I've talked to several local business owners, and I know that I could call on them anytime too about random business ideas or advice all the time. And so as a young professional, plug in, find people who you could either aspire to be or who are doing things that you want to be doing, and ask how to get more involved.
That's interesting. So did you have mentors that you were able to call upon?
Yeah. So I've had several over the years that I've called upon, and I have one right now that I work with who she kind of helps me with some, I don't know if I would call it more spiritual, but just like personal growth and development. And, so I would say that that's one area that a lot of people overlook is like, if you're investing in yourself, like that's going to be one of the most incredible investments you can make. Yeah. And so I'm going to continue to do that. And, that's somebody that I'm going to work with for years too, because there'll always be self-work to make.
Well, that's the end of the formal interview. You made it through that. So we're going to go to the rapid fire segment. And this is where we get to learn a little bit more about you in a less formal format. So are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. What movie have you seen the most?
Oh gosh, I would probably say Dirty Dancing.
Describe your perfect day.
I would say, can we be in two locations at once? Because I would like to wake up on the beach with the Mai Tai, but then still also be in, actually, I don't even know if I like Mai Tais, but some sort of a fun little cocktail. But then also, get to spend part of the day here in Manhattan and with my family and, my teammates and, getting to work with some salon owners and just kind of having a little balance of all of it and ending it with an amazing dinner.
Yeah, it's your day. You can do whatever you want. So you can be wherever you want, all the places. There you go. You get a private jet. We just what job did you want as a kid?
I actually always wanted to be a shoe salesman, and I did that for a short time, so I nailed it.
That's pretty funny. My son, when he was a kid, wanted to be a candy bar salesman.
He did.
I think he'd seen it on SpongeBob or something. So that's what he wanted to be. If someone paid you to write a blog or book about anything, what would it be about?
Oh, definitely, how to have an incredible career in the beauty industry.
All right. And what you're doing. Yeah. What was your first job?
Well, my first job, it was probably babysitting, but then my mom had a flower shop. So I worked there. I would say that was probably when I was super young. Yeah. Most people start their jobs usually if their parents own something. That's where they start. What skill would you most like to learn? I don't know if it's a skill, but I would love to be a golfer and be proud to say that.
Me too. Yeah. And I just can't.
Yes.
I don't know what the deal is with that. Where is the coolest place you've traveled?
Oh, man. I would say either Amsterdam was awesome or the British Virgin Islands were also amazing.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that instantly makes your day better?
Just seeing the smile on my kid's face and just knowing that, they're happy and living a great life.
We didn't talk about that. So you talk about your kids.
Yeah. So I have 3 kids.
Okay.
Ella, who's 13.
Okay.
Luca, who's 8, and then Bodhi, who is 3.
Okay.
And they're just amazing and fun, and nothing like having toddlers and teenagers in the same household.
No kidding. And own a business. You are a busy person.
Yes.
What is the most ridiculous thing you believed as a child?
Well, if your kids are in the car, hit pause. But probably just Santa Claus, I would say. And I still just love that sentiment and that season and all that.
What advice would you give the 19-year-old Lindsay?
Just keep going and doing great things and help as many people as you can. And you're going to figure everything out. It's going to be great.
Good advice. Lindsay, thank you for being on our show today, and congratulations on being one of the 15 under 40 recipients. Thanks for all you do for the Chamber, and congratulations on the success of Platinum & Company.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The Think MHK podcast is brought to you by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Don't forget to subscribe and like the Think MHK podcast on your preferred podcast provider, and you will never risk missing an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. To find out more about today's topic or other chamber activities, please go to manhattan.org. And now back to today's show. Our guest today on the Think MHK podcast is another one of our 15 under 40 winners, Stephanie Peterson with the City of Manhattan. Hey, Stephanie.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we always ask our guests to talk a little bit about themselves, in particular, how they ended up in Manhattan.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a story there of always wanting to be in Manhattan and then eventually finding my way. I grew up in Topeka, so not very far, but I spent a lot of Saturdays coming to Manhattan for football games. I always knew I wanted to go to K-State, and so I ended up moving to Manhattan out of high school, received my bachelor's degree, a minor in leadership, and then also have my master's in regional and community planning from K-State. And as I was finishing up my master's, I was an intern for the City of Manhattan, actually in the same department that I work in today. And I was trying to determine where my next step was going to be and where my career would take me. One of my mentors at the time, Rob Ott, who was our city engineer, I was talking to him about my opportunity to stay with the city or an opportunity to go to KDOT. And he encouraged me to leave my comfort zone and to take the job at the Department of Transportation. So I did. I moved back to Topeka. That was not part of my plan. But I spent 3.5 years at KDOT, worked on some really cool projects across the state. And in 2013, had the opportunity to move back to Manhattan to become the first staff person for the newly designated Flint Hills MPO. So I was with the MPO for 9 years until May of 2022, when I was named the Director of Community Development for the city. Today, I get to live and work in Manhattan, and my husband and I are raising our sons here.
So let's follow up on a couple of those things. So number one, and we hear all kinds of stories, but how is it that you decided early on, I'm going to Kansas State? Is it a family deal? Is it something?
Yep, it was a family tie.
Okay.
So my dad, he went to K-State for his engineering degree, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I actually started out at K-State in engineering, and then even though I loved math, that was just a little too much math all the time for me, and I really wanted kind of that social element and kind of being a part of something bigger than just that one project. And regional and community planning really fit that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who start in engineering and end up I started in engineering, but math gets a lot of people. So does chemistry. So does physics. It's pretty tough. Let's talk for a minute. You went to the state and then you came back and you said MPO, but for those that don't know what an MPO is, describe what that stands for and what that is.
Metropolitan Planning Organization. Anytime a community hits 50,000 people, it is required by federal law to create this entity that's responsible for transportation planning. When I was at KDOT, Manhattan hit that threshold, and I kind of called dibs on working with the great people back in Manhattan. And as I started to kind of put together this organization and help them get started, I realized that I really liked the work that was involved with the MPO, and I really liked the people that I would get to work with.
So even though it was a Manhattan requirement, you had responsibilities for the entire metro, is that right?
Correct.
So how did you go about getting those other counties interested in something that was pretty much a Manhattan-centered?
Yeah, that was a fun time. So under federal law, it was really the Manhattan urbanized area that had to be a part of it. But we saw a lot of connection between Pottawatomie County, kind of the US 24 corridor with Wamego, and then especially with Junction City due to Fort Riley and our relationship there. And so those, ended up being 6 entities, 3 counties, 3 cities came together and said, we want to create this regional partnership to look at transportation planning, and we think it's going to benefit our region and Fort Riley. And it went to city commissions for votes. It was not unanimous with the city of Manhattan. It was a 3-2 vote of whether to even create it. But I think now I think I can safely say that all of the jurisdictions see value in what the MPO provides.
And they're still around, even though you left.
Yes, they have to be around. I think that was the big catch. If you want to receive federal funds for any transportation project, you have to have an MPO. So it makes it really hard to say no to that type of organization.
And so what would be a project example that you worked on where you were able to get federal funds to help offset?
K-18.
Okay.
The expansion of K-18
Sure.
between Manhattan and I-70, that was a huge project. It was a little bit before the MPO's time, but that coordination and that cooperation that happened, that's exactly why that entity exists.
Yep, got it. So talk about your role now. What is it that you do on a day-to-day basis for the city of Manhattan?
As the Director of Community Development, we have really 3 divisions. We look at long-range planning. So we have a Beyond Tomorrow downtown plan, looking at over the next 20 years, what do we want our downtown to become? We have a lot of long-range initiatives out on US 24 in Aggieville. Some of the decisions made in Aggieville right now are driven by a plan that we did. And then I think the most probably public-facing aspect is our development review. That's when someone wants to annex, rezone, do some sort of development on their lot. A lot of times they're engaging with our office. And then lastly, we have an allocation of community development block grant funds directly from the federal, from HUD, Housing and Urban Development. And those go towards our low or moderate income areas, as well as some housing rehab projects for that population.
Yeah, and of course, one of the most visible things you're working on now is housing. So
yeah, I see. I tried to avoid saying that, but you're right.
So
yes.
Is that naturally under your, or is that something you said, no, I'll work on that? How did that work?
Housing kind of started when I got to the city a year and a half ago. It was kind of already under community development, but it is something that I think I'm passionate about. And I think that without housing, there's really not a reason to do a lot of the other work that we're doing. Yes, I continue to volunteer to work on it. It is definitely a big undertaking, but it's something our community has delayed kind of addressing for a couple decades now.
And I think we've seen, and a lot of it has been due to your efforts, but we've seen a transition, at least in how some of the people in the community are looking at housing now. And there seems to be a lot more openness to trying new ideas. Is that something that you've kind of witnessed through your time in that? Because early on, it was a struggle to get people to accept even maybe that there was even a problem.
I have seen that evolution, even, just in the short time I've been with the city. The approach that we take right now is providing data. And I think that we've been able to show some of that data to help that argument, saying there is, I don't use the word crisis, but there is an issue here. And we're seeing some trends, especially in that workforce housing range. And I think as we can continue to produce data and then make progress in those areas that we see a deficiency, I think that's how we get buy-in.
Yeah. And of course, we are hearing it from our major employers as they try to recruit people. They say that the people come in, look around and say that the housing is higher than they expected or higher than they can manage. And so we appreciate the fact that you all are willing to work on that and appreciate people's willingness to consider it as a priority for the city going forward. So, okay, we'll get off the city now. We won't put you on the spot anymore on some of those key issues. Let's talk a minute about why you're here. And that's because you were named one of the 15 under 40, which is how we recognize young professionals in the region in the 3 counties. So how did you feel, first of all, about being nominated? So you found out you were nominated, and then we asked you to ask people nominated to fill out their application. And then how did you feel when you found out that you won?
In each of those scenarios, I was shocked. I really wanted to know who nominated me. I think having some self-doubt sometimes, it was just more of having that confirmation that, no, this is, we believe that you should be on this list. But I'm also, even at the thought of nomination and then again, it actually being selected, I'm deeply honored. When you look at the individuals from that inaugural class, and then even my peers in the 2024 class, it's really kind of surreal to see my name next to theirs because I see their accomplishments. I see what they're giving back to our community. And so to even be associated, I think is what I found really humbling. And again, just kind of in that state of shock initially.
Did you find out who nominated you?
I did not.
Yeah, so we don't tell. So they would have to tell you. So I didn't know, maybe somebody came up and said, "Oh, I nominated you."
Nope, I'm still waiting. So if they're listening to this, maybe there might have been multiple people. Send me an email.
So let's talk for a minute. You've chosen to stay in Manhattan, and you came back to Manhattan, and then obviously stayed in Manhattan. And you talked a little bit about this, but what is the ultimate reason why you decided to stay here, and what makes Manhattan a special place to live, work, and raise your family?
I actually think about this on my own quite a bit. We are, my family, my husband and I and our kids are fortunate to have the opportunity to travel quite a bit. And I've been to almost every state now and several other countries. And every time that we travel, I always look forward to coming home. And I don't know what it is about our community that just feels like home every time that you come back to it. And I have yet to find another place that feels like where I belong, that I'm supposed to be there. And so I think until that changes, I hope to continue to call Manhattan my home. I really despise the fluctuations in weather. So we can have a 78, it could be 78 degrees at noon and then snowing by 4 p.m. in the afternoon. That makes me a little grouchy, but I think I endure that because of just the special place that we've created and we continue to create.
You have one child, two,
and then I have 2 stepkids.
Okay, and how old are they?
The little ones, well, I call them little. They're 11 and 9.
Okay, so they go to school in
Manhattan.
So we found. So my wife and I moved here 4 years ago, and we had older kids, but in particular, moving kids here, and they just thrived because of the environment for children. Is that something that you found in that as well?
Yeah. I think that's part of what, part of my own kind of personal goal, I guess, is to make Manhattan this place that maybe my kids want to move away just to go to college somewhere, but they want to come back. And again, that's just like my mama heart wanting to have my kids close to me. But I mean, they both right now want to go to K-State because they love Manhattan. They love watching K-State athletics. There's always something to do. We really enjoy our local restaurants. Like there's always an event or some sort of opportunity to kind of get involved and to kind of give back to the community. And so I think it's really cool raising your kids in a place that they already have that sense of identity. They already know that it's special and that there's something that is unique that's offered here.
Yeah. And do your kids understand what you do, and do they ask you why we don't have certain things?
I think sometimes we don't give our kids enough credit. They do know what I do. And I think sometimes adults don't even know what I do. And especially my 11-year-old who's in middle school now, he'll always be like, Mom, you have the coolest job. Like, did you work on that building? I'm like, well, I helped, to the point to get that building there. But I think he sees the importance of having a vision for a community. And it's the little things that make a difference, especially when you're trying to set yourself apart as a city in comparison to all these other places people could choose to live.
I've told this story before, but when my at the time 4-year-old son kind of figured out what I did for a living, which was economic development and helping attract, retain, and grow businesses, he just never was sure that I was doing a good job because we didn't have a Chuck E. Cheese in the town that I was in. So
that's great.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, we don't have a Chuck E. Cheese. Maybe you need to look at a new career. So what advice do you have for young professionals who are getting out of school and entering the workforce?
One of my favorite quotes right now is by Theodore Roosevelt. And I don't even know that it's a quote necessarily for me. It's almost this call to action. And it's do what you can with what you have where you are. And I think this is such a valuable lesson, both professionally, but then also it can be in your personal life. You don't have to be at the top of an org chart. You don't have to have this great social network of people or even wealth to make a difference. Just do what you can with what you have where you are.
Yeah. It's an interesting, and we didn't follow up on this at the time when you talked about it, but you were talking about advice you got from the late Rob Ott, who we miss tremendously in this community, and his advice to you about go somewhere else where you may. Is that something that you look back now on and it has been beneficial, and is that advice you'd give other people too?
It absolutely is. I think take that chance. What I tell a lot of young graduates that I meet with is take that job, right out of school just for that learning opportunity. Go create connections, learn new things. You don't have to stay there for the rest of your career, but also don't just jump from job to job. And so I think one thing that I've always done, kind of in my third job within my career, is I don't leave someplace because it gets hard. I typically leave someplace because I get bored. So set goals for yourself of what you want to achieve. And when you feel like you've either given that organization all that you can, or you've received from it everything that you can learn, then start looking for that next opportunity.
Yep, it's good advice. So we always ask, particularly our young professionals, as other than this podcast, which I'm sure you're a regular listener of, are there any podcasts or books that you would recommend that people either tune into or check out at the library?
Yeah, I have two. One of them is Coaching for Leaders. It's hosted by Dave Stachowiak. They're on like episode 638.
Oh, wow.
But you can kind of search by different content. And that's something I found really valuable in my professional career. But then another one I really enjoy is Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell. If you like history or just want a better understanding of kind of the whole story of something, he does a great job. It gets a little frustrating sometimes realizing that you only get part of what that actual event was.
And that, of course, both those are podcasts, right?
Correct.
So,
yep.
And then we talked a little bit about this before we came on there. Do you have any hobbies? Do you have things you like to do to kind of decompress when you get done with a city commission meeting and had to answer a million questions?
My kids are my hobby right now.
Mm-hmm.
They are in a lot of sports.
Yeah.
So we actually are I think it's spending a lot of weekends for soccer, for basketball, baseball. I really enjoy it because they enjoy it. So until they are driving themselves and out of all of the recreational activities, I think that's where I continue to spend a lot of my time. But talking a little bit off air, and I think it might be something I mentioned later on even, but it's, I want to learn to play the guitar. And that's something that I kind of dabbled with during COVID. And then the perfectionist in me it didn't work out well for me.
If you're a perfectionist, I think playing an instrument becomes really difficult
It does.
Unless you're just a natural at it. And most of us aren't. So, okay. So you mentioned it. We're out of the normal portion of the interview and we move into the infamous rapid fire. And so we ask 10 questions and we don't time you or anything, but we ask you to try to limit your answer. And just so we learn a little more about you. So I think you're ready to move forward with that?
Let's do this.
Okay. Number one, what job did you want as a kid?
I wanted to be a veterinarian.
That was the job you wanted. What was actually your first job?
Well, I didn't get paid, but I moved fuel trucks from field to field on our family farm. I spent all my summers out in Western Kansas. So I actually asked my parents just a little while ago, how old do you think I was? And they said, well, you started moving just like a vehicle when you were 8. And I have a 9-year-old and that is terrifying. Yeah. So I must have been a very responsible child.
Yeah. I grew up in a farm town too. And one of my best friends had already wrecked his first vehicle when he was like 12. So
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't do that.
Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic in that when you grow up around that most people around here, of course, understand it, but you get certain places they don't understand that at all. So what is the most unusual pet you've had?
I volunteered at a nature center for about 7 years as a kid. And so I was always around some really interesting animals. But I think the most unusual one I ever actually got to bring back to my house was a beaver named Wally.
And then you touched on this a little bit ago, but what skill would you most like to learn?
I want to be proficient at playing the guitar. I just need to get some patience in order to do that. I've
done that before, and you just get to a certain point and you're like, I really have to spend some time on this if I'm going to be good at it. And that it's kind of like golf. Yeah. And it's just hard to find the time and the patience to be able to do that. Where is the coolest place you've traveled?
I struggle with this one. I think it's probably St. Croix. It's a Virgin Island down in the Caribbean. It's really tiny. It's only about 22 miles long, but it has like desert on one end, rainforest on the other, and just a really cool culture. Yeah,
Caribbean's always nice. That's always a good answer. What is one thing that instantly makes your day better?
So we do this thing, my boys and I and my husband, it's called a 20-second hug. And my kids are still young enough, they actually like hugging me, so that's great. But during that 20-second hug, your brain actually releases oxytocin and de-stresses you like a short run would. And I hate running, so I would take the 20-second hug over that. That's probably something discouraged in the workplace, but if you can do that before your day starts or at the end of it, that's something that we enjoy doing.
What did you do as a teenager that makes you cringe now?
My parents let me paint my room lime green, and it had this sheen over it. It was really atrocious.
Do you prefer working remotely or in the office?
If you would have asked me this 2 years ago, I think my answer would have been different. But since being at the city, I really enjoy the face-to-face interaction.
Sure.
There's a lot of value there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm gonna go. What was your first and favorite concert? And that can be two answers.
So both of these took place at Sandstone when it used to be Sandstone outside of Kansas City. My first concert was Dave Matthews Band. My parents actually took me to that. And then my favorite one was Counting Crows. I think John Mayer was touring with them, but that was just seeing them in concert and just their presentation. It was really great.
Yeah, it's different. I've seen Counting Crows, and the interesting thing when I saw them, they did not do Mr. Jones, and that didn't bother me because they did a lot of really cool things, but it did bother. There were a lot of grumbling people when we left the arena that night.
So Mr. Jones, they were playing that song and a fly flew in his mouth as he was singing. And so he stops and is like spitting out this fly. And then they just pick up jamming like right where they were.
That's hilarious. What advice would you give the 19-year-old you?
Don't be so eager to grow up. Take your time to find yourself, to travel, then settle down. Adulting can wait.
Yeah, I wish somebody had given me that advice because I felt like I had to be adult right away. So, last question: how is Dave Lewis as a board member? That is the. And by
We're
the way,
doing the on-air response.
And by the way, I've had Dave Lewis as a board member of ours too. So one of our major committees. So I'll let you go first, and then I'll go.
Dave was great. He set the bar pretty high, and I'm not just saying this because he's sitting right next to me.
Should I have left the room?
No, we'll talk about you to your face.
Yeah,
Okay.
you would get the same response from me, Dave. You were really great.
We've
I think
had this discussion.
we have. He was Board of County Commissioner at the time, and we were kind of going through that initial setup and everybody kind of finding their way. And he was incredibly supportive of me and of the organization. And I think it really just having people like him involved at that early stage were crucial for the long-term success.
That's been our experience. Dave has been a member of our CVB committee and multiple times, I think. But
is it my birthday?
Last time.
I mean, is there a reason why you're being so nice to me
we
today?
just have a couple of people here that know you, and so we'll get to talk about you.
Now, she is as professional as anybody that I've had the opportunity to work with in a professional capacity, and you know this.
100%.
Everybody that's worked with Stephanie knows this.
Yeah. Well, we talked briefly about it, but I've just been really impressed with her ability to make very complicated things easy to understand. So, and when you're in the position you're in, that's super important. So.
You have to dumb it down for commissioners.
Well, and for me, to be honest with you. So it takes
no comment. You can say that, Dave. I
can
can't.
say that.
It's like, oh, well, I didn't understand that till Stephanie just explained it. Now I understand it completely. So, Stephanie, thanks for being on the Think MHK podcast, and congratulations again on your 15 under 40 win. And we'll continue to look forward working with you on big projects going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Think MHK, a podcast produced by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. If you enjoyed the Think MHK podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it out on your social media channels. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce.